With the Trump administration's ceasefire with Iran now in shambles, Republican lawmakers are sounding the alarm over the impact the war in Iran could have on their electoral chances this November. Politico has new reporting detailing how the party that promised America First policies has become vulnerable thanks to Donald Trump's betrayal of a campaign promise of no new wars. From that reporting, the latest resumption of fighting poses economic risks some GOP incumbents fear could cost them in November, including higher gas prices during the year's busiest travel season. And they worry, as the cycle of war and fragile peace plays out, that the president cares little about their political fate. From one Republican lawmaker, quote, "Midterms are still beyond Trump's focus zone. Not screwing us might be his goal, but he's screwing us into political oblivion." We are back with our panel. Lauren, I feel like that article could have been written last month, 2 months ago, maybe a few weeks after this war with Iran started. I mean, those quotes also sort of imply that Congress feels that they are powerless here, when in reality, aside from some of the recent spat of Supreme Court decisions that have been made, the Constitution bestows Congress more power than any other branch of government. Lawmakers could take some agency here and do something, no?
And they declined to do so when they had the opportunity, because they could have held him accountable and passed a law preventing him from continuing. The thing is, the arrogance, I mean, you have to go back to like the initial just absolute blind arrogance that got us into this in the first place. When you've had half a dozen presidents over the last, 60 years recognize that Iran is one of those places that just defies all the standard rules. And then you have Netanyahu who, barrels ahead manages to persuade Trump and Hegseth that somehow we're going to do what nobody else has been able to do. And what have they discovered? That in fact we cannot do what nobody else has been able to do, for very good reason, because just as the arrogance kept us in Vietnam for a decade, you could see the same thing happening here. This belief that it's just one more military strike that's going to take it out, just one more hit is going to get us to peace somehow. And then they're sending in grossly unqualified people. Jared Kushner and Witkoff did extraordinary work in Israel. They got lucky in a lot of ways because their conditions were set for them to succeed. I don't discount what they achieved, but Iran is an entirely other ballgame. I mean, people who've studied and worked on that country for decades have been unable to make any kind of diplomatic progress. And then they're going to come along somehow and make the peace with people who have no interest in getting to a solution. The longer this goes on, the more humiliating it is for America and the stronger they look. So, we're going to be there in November because there's no other choice. They can't get out of this now.
Yeah, and Angela, I'm wondering if you can take into stock for us whether or not being anti-war, anti-interventionist, America first is even a tenet of MAGA anymore. I mean, we have talked about, as I noted during our last conversation, that there have been MAGA influencers, people like Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who have obviously sort of licensed the ability to dissent, but that it hadn't necessarily truly changed people's core beliefs or their core adherence to the president. What is MAGA now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really hard question to answer. I mean, right now it's whatever Trump says, according to Trump, and that's probably true because MAGA doesn't really exist. I mean, it was always, let's keep in mind, it was always sort of this loose coalition built on grievances and grift. And it was a lot of different constituents that sort of just came under this one umbrella. And so, yeah, originally sort of at the center of it, the most diehards, part of the traditional right-wing media, the stuff that Trump pays the closest attention to, the talk radio crowd, the Fox News crowd, they've always been hawkish on Iran. I mean, that has been, a constant through line. And as much as they're America first, but we love war and we want to continue wars and as bellicose as we can possibly be. And there's a lot of magical thinking there. There's the part that I think became much more culturally relevant last cycle, where you sort of had these broadcasts and the MAGA people who sort of all joined on. They've always been deeply, sort of like a true America first in that they're not interventionist, they're anti-war. Though that constituency has been lit up about this and has been activated nonstop. It's just that Trump is not connected to them in any way. He still watches Fox News and Newsmax. The stuff that he did during the campaign, those were one-offs. He doesn't pay attention to those shows. He's not listening to them. He's not engaging with them. And he's not on Twitter anymore. He doesn't really pay attention to anything happening in the zeitgeist. Truth Social is sort of like a cesspool of just bot nonsense and reflections of Trump's own AI slop. And so it's really hard for him to get any real sense of what's happening out there. And if you watch Fox News tells you by and large that Trump didn't fail. Anytime there's a bad thing going wrong, somebody else failed Trump, and that the most important thing he can do right now is get rid of Witkoff and Kushner and replace them. That's been the most hard-edged thing that Fox News has said, is that it's time to replace the negotiating team. So what is MAGA? MAGA is really sort of a shell. There is a battle happening for what the future of the party is going to be. Vance is probably going to get run over as a part of that if you read the tea leaves. And the rest of it is the anti-war group is just going to continue spinning, and they're going to have much more to say post-Trump, but not now.
Although I have been told by some White House sources that the president is back on the J.D. Vance bandwagon. But if there's anyone who can give us MAGA's elevator pitch in 1 minute, it is you, Angelo. We do have some breaking news, though. We've been waiting for this, and now we can report that Graham Plattner has officially withdrawn from this Maine Senate race. The Office of Maine Secretary of State said it received Plattner's formal withdrawal, removing him from the ballot following sexual assault allegations that surfaced earlier this week. He had until Monday to get out of the race so that Democrats can pick a replacement. And as of this morning, we had reported that Plattner was going to wait until the bitter end, until Monday, to actually drop out formally and wait until, again, the bitter end. But Tim, what's your reaction to this news? And do you think that Democrats have made a mistake by not rallying around Plattner?
Yeah, I mean, we could do hours on the Graham Plattner drama, and I've done that basically over on the Borg YouTube page. So to sum it up, I don't think that the Democrats have made a mistake. I mean, I think that the accusations against him are very serious. I think if they weren't true, he'd have the opportunity to defend himself vigorously and run a campaign, and he decided not to do that. People can take that fact for what it is. By the way, I think the Republicans were holding a lot of opposition research on Graham Plattner. I've seen some Graham Plattner supporters say this is like convenient timing or whatever. I think it's very inconvenient timing for the Republicans who wanted this deadline to pass before they put out more information about him. I don't know what that would have been, but I think that he was a very risky bet for Democrats in a state they absolutely have to win. In all of the big Senate races this year, North Carolina, Iowa, Texas, Ohio, you go through them. Maine is the only one the Democrats won at the presidential level in 16, 20, and 24. Hillary, Joe, Kamala, all won. And so all the Democrats need to do in the Maine Senate race is get all of the Harris, Biden, Clinton voters to vote for whoever the nominee ends up being, So if they can rally around somebody that can unite the Democratic coalition, they should be able to pick up that Senate seat. And I think, risking it with someone that has such serious allegations against them and with some unknown possible others was something that was just not going to be in the cards. And I think the Democrats also showed that they have some red lines when it comes to accusations, particularly around sexual assault.
The biggest thing that Democrats should have done was get their act together to walk away from him a month ago. I did it. A few people did it. We got absolutely eviscerated by the left. I was hit with a barrage of anti-Semitism, claiming that I was in the pocket of Israel. And that was why not only I, but also the New York Times reporters, both who are Jewish, were smeared as agents of Israel and AIPAC for the reporting. So there is lots of recriminations to go around. But the fact is, we knew this. We knew a lot of very damning information about him a full week before the primary, when Janet Mills was still on the ballot and there were opportunities to make the right choice. Now we're back in a kind of Biden last minute, no time left scenario. It's a lot of lessons to learn here.
We know how well that went.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Democrats drawing the line on what kind of party they want to be, and Graham Plattner realizing he doesn't have as much leverage as he thought he did. Tim Miller, Angelo Carasone, Basil Smikle, Lauren Leader, thank you, all of you, so much for joining me today. We really appreciate it.